Okay, so hi guys. My name is Latoya Nikki. I'm social media, but of course my name in the classroom is Latoya Walker or Miss Walker in the classroom. I am a dance educator and an arts enrichment instructor as well. I am the creative director for a company, a performing arts program called Footwork And Sole. At the moment, as he mentioned, I'm outside of the classroom. I'm actually active duty Navy. So I am in the Navy full time, and I do all of the things that I do related to the classroom right now on a part time basis. I'm fortunate enough to be doing a lot of this stuff online prior to the pandemic. So I've been able to still keep the connections to the classroom. It's just a little non traditional. So.
Okay, and what is it again that you teach?
Arts enrichment. So I
Okay.
teach all of the arts related classes and some non traditional classes like yoga in different schools.
And you also have your own dance company, correct?
Yes, I do.
How is your?
So
Oh, go ahead.
go for it. Go for
I was just
it.
gonna ask, how's your dance company been impacted because of everything?
So what's really cool about the way that I run my company, Footwork and Soul actually offers seminars, dance seminars, workshops, and intensive style education. And a lot of what I do actually relates to dance educators as well as the students. So I run seminars that are like sit down academic lecture style classes that pertain to the history of dance or dance wellness. Dance wellness includes injury prevention and nutrition, as well as dance curriculum. So I teach dance from an academic standpoint. I teach dance teachers how to take it to a more academic level versus just teaching what you already learned or recycling old habits that your dance teacher taught you. So my program actually is still continuing to be okay. It's not obviously not at the capacity that it was when I was able to get into a classroom or into a space or a studio with someone. But it's definitely still operating. I'm still able to educate a lot of my educators because now they have to navigate how to do this online. And so I've had to been able to pass on some of the tools that I use to make your experience still interactive for your art students.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamila Sams. From Philadelphia, but I've been in Baltimore for quite some time now. So Baltimore is my second home. I'm an educator by trade, by craft. That is who I am. But I'm also a former administrator. And so for the past 4 years, I decided to start my own education consulting company, really focusing on school climate and culture. I was a former assistant principal, and that's where I really just kind of found my groove and my passion in working with students and just making sure that the climate of my school was conducive to learning, positive, equitable. And I really take joy in helping other schools to transform their culture as well. So most of my work primarily is along the East Coast. I do a lot of work in New York with New York Public City Schools. And right now, a lot of my focus is around this concept of advisory, where, you have a smaller school community within a larger school community. And I wrote a curriculum called We Do It for the Culture, which is a hip hop based social emotional learning curriculum that schools can use during their advisory time in order to really have some, what I like to call real talk, real conversations with students based on where they
So,
are.
how are you impacted because of the pandemic with you not being able to go to the physical schools and work with faculty and students?
Right. So it's just a matter of pivoting and shifting. And so the urgency is still there.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of having these conversations now online, doing trainings online, supporting my teachers, popping into different advisory classrooms and being able to look at them virtually and support them virtually. So it's business as usual. Obviously, the impact has shifted a little bit in terms of not being able to be face to face and interact with people. But, we make it work, right? We're very resilient people. And so, we just try to figure out what's the best way in order to keep those conversations going. And more than ever right now, social emotional learning is extremely critical in working with teachers and students to make sure that we're meeting kids' needs right now from an emotional standpoint based on everything that's happening. And not just the students, but I'm also working with teachers and adults and administrators on SEL competencies and how they can use those in order to get by during these times. So it's business as usual, a little different.
I'm glad, Jamila, you mentioned the social emotional, because what we kind of uncovered was, with this stimulus bill, which was what, $2 trillion, why wasn't there a component with the social emotional specifically for the schools? I know that a part of it, they kind of earmarked, I don't want to make up a number, but they earmarked a specific amount for each governor of each state to be able to use specifically for education at their discretion. What I'm hoping for, speaking to what you said, is that it is social emotional. Dr. Tidwell said we should have therapists, counselors, psychiatrists maybe, because some kids may need it, some adults may need it. Therapy is going to be huge. All of the standardized tests, of course, have been canceled for the year. I'm pretty sure all schools are going to be canceled if they haven't officially been declared that in your respective state. And we don't know how long this is going to last. So the question I propose to Dr. Tidwell is, what happens if this jumps into fall semester or the beginning of the year for most schools? Like, what's going to be the impact?
I mean, that's $1 million question right there.
Yeah.
It's and it's a matter of kind of just taking a dart and just throwing it on a map blindfolded to figure out where to start, because I think a lot of times there's no response to urgency until there's an emergency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that we're in it, it's very hard to backpedal and try to figure out how to make up for years of inequity and the digital divide and the academic achievement gap in let's hurry up and do that on top of, dealing with a pandemic. So it's a matter of just really prioritizing. And so unfortunately, social emotional learning is something that is just now recently becoming prioritized. And I think, honestly, the reason for that, there's different layers. One, I think after all of the mass shootings that schools have happened over the years, it's like, okay, we need to do something and have some type of outlet for these students to talk about their feelings, right? Because now is leading to mass shootings. So that happened. Then there's the, disproportionate number of students of color primarily that were being suspended. And so, that means the kids, they're just acting out, so they need some help. Let's work on their emotions. Mm-hmm. So although we know that making sure that our emotions and being connected to each other, that's just innate in us. But now it's starting to become kind of a hot topic. And now, based on this pandemic, there is a little more talk about it. But right now, I feel like more of the conversation is happening around the digital divide. That's always been there. But now we're realizing that now the students need to, learn from home is easier said than done for so many of our students. You have about, I think right now in New York City, I think 300,000 homes don't even have a computer.
Wow.
So the likelihood for students to be able to just log on and do their work, that's just one layer of the problem. Mm-hmm. And so to answer your question, with the funding coming, it's just a matter of each state prioritizing. I would hope that social emotional learning and those supports are prioritized, but to be quite honest, I think more than likely is going to go towards, finally, hopefully, is going to go towards infrastructure and technology, if this continues.
And I connect to, I apologize for cutting off. I just really wanted to jump on the last thought that she had and a portion of what she just said. I connect a lot to the social emotional development and behavioral regulation and all of the digital divide, even in my realm of what I do in education, especially because a lot of times when I went into different school districts, charter schools or private schools, I was going in from that perspective. As an arts enrichment instructor, hey, I'm going to be working on your students' social emotional regulation and things like that. And so now it's harder to do it online, and because a lot of these students need it in person. Just like she said, sometimes it's the feels, to touch is someone else, a human interaction that makes all of the difference. And a lot of even my teachers, the dance educators that I work with, they have a digital divide, believe it or not, because a lot of performing arts professionals, creative professionals, and or like dance educators don't have a lot of income to have things like an iPad or a laptop or a computer. And a lot of them that do utilize those things are utilizing them through the studio or through the school that they work for or at their local library. And so even trying to get access to the educators to work with them and connect, there's a big digital divide. And so I absolutely agree with everything that she just said. It's like finding ways to accommodate that, I think, is going to be really challenging, even if we continue to go through this pandemic into the next year.
When I think about the digital divide, it's not just having the physical hardware, right, with the necessary software. I'm also thinking about the Wi-Fi situation. I'm going to assume, I don't know, I'm going to assume nobody's utility should be cut off right now, regardless of the dollar amount that's owed. I would just assume that's going on across the country, but I could be wrong. And if they don't have Wi-Fi, they don't have the hardware, and even if they do have that, there's something in instructional design and technology that's always bothered me. And it's the lack of training that actual educators get, because, and I work for an Apple certified school in a suburb outside of Memphis. And when I look at my colleagues, when I go into their classroom, when I'm eavesdropping or I'm in discourse about instructional technology, I really think that people are using instructional technology just to use instructional technology because it looks good, it looks great on the rubric. Jamila, you've been in the actual classroom before though, right? Have you served as a teacher before?
I taught, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
how long did you teach?
I taught for 6 years.
Okay, awesome. So you're a veteran. You're a veteran. And so with the observation cycle, and regardless of what state you're in, it's a dog and pony show. So we can use all the technology. I work for a one-to-one school. They got their iPads out. Oh, we're gonna make this thing look good. But it's a dog and pony show. It's a checklist. It's a rubric, and most administrators and during formal observations, they use it as a checklist, even though they're not supposed to. They use it as a checklist. So it's a dog and pony show. So I feel like a lot of educators don't have the proper training needed to use it where it enhances the lesson. I feel like they're using it because it's on that rubric, it's on that checklist, and this is what my principal or assistant principal wants to see. If the state Department of Education is visiting my school, you kind of get a mandate from the head principal, hey, make sure everybody's on iPads, make sure everybody's on tablets. And it's like, when is that training going to actually come? Especially since we can't physically be at the schools and we don't know when we'll be allowed back in those doors. And if we're struggling as educators to properly use it the right way, what about the kids? Because they say the kids are supposed to be, what generation is this? Z? Generation Z, or I don't know what they call them. But they're supposed to be they're supposed to be the tech savvy. You know, everybody's got an iPad, everybody's got a phone. And what we realized based on the stats you said, that's not true. You said about 300,000 homes don't actually even have a computer. I bet they got a smartphone though, but that doesn't necessarily help the situation.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. But with all the technology that the kids have, the video games they play, they don't actually know how to use the technology to learn. They don't know how to use the technology to build something, to produce something. We've got so many STEM programs going on nationwide, but what are they actually doing in STEM class? Are they retaining the information and reinforcing it at home? Because you can go to Barnes and Noble or whatever type of store that has educational, toys or science kits, and like you can buy a robot and you can program it. So you can practice, what you preach. But again, to that inequity and that digital divide, can mom and dad afford it? And are they, is there reinforcement at home? So
Right.
I just want your thoughts on that. That wasn't really a question. It's just kind of more of a statement of what are we going to do? Because it's a hot mess right now. We don't know how long this is going to last. We know more than likely, if it does go into fall, what the response is going to be. Oh, there's 300,000 homes without computers. Let's get them computers. That doesn't solve anything, though.
Right.
Doesn't solve anything. We got a problem.
Right.
So,
well, as Meek Mills would say, there's levels to this, right?
Hey.
There's so many different levels, and it's just a matter of where do you start based on where a district is, based on where a school is, based on where a classroom is, based on a teacher, based on a student, based on a family. So it's so many different entry points. But you brought up a good point. Just having the tool doesn't mean you know how to use it. And so for a lot of our teachers that aren't trained on how to really not just infuse technology, but be purposeful with technology.
How to use it
effectively so that the students are using that to do some critical and analytical thinking. Mm-hmm. Like we're not in a place where we can just be satisfied with rote learning. Like we're way beyond that. We should definitely be in a place where we're taking the information, synthesizing it, applying it, and using it in very authentic, real life, situations.
Organic ways.
Yeah, for those students to be home and for those that do have access, because some of them do, it's a matter of what are the adults around that child, if they are of right frame of mind, if they are, in a position to help that student, what are you, basically encouraging your child to do with that device? It's one thing to make a TikTok video. It's another thing to actually see, what's happening in the world around you and how can you play a role in that? What can you create using your laptop, your smartphone, what have you?
Thank you for listening to the Black Scholars Podcast. For more information, go to blackscholarspublishing.com.